So this is a RiskPal live demo. It's the first time we've done this, so please bear with us in case we make a few mistakes. And basically what we're going to be showing you is our travel risk management tool. It's a risk assessment platform. It can be used for multiple purposes, not just travel risk, but today we're going to be showing you the travel risk functionality. So I'm just going to share my screen and I'll just start with a quick explanation of what RiskPal is. Sorry, so you should be able to see my screen now. Forgive me, I can't see what I'm actually sharing, so I'm hoping that you can see this. So just to start off with, I mean, lots of people are responsible for travel risk, and they have different formats in which they do risk assessments. As you know, duty of care is expanding as a concept, and legislation is expanding continuously. It's becoming more and more prevalent that people are doing risk assessments for travel. And a lot of organizations, what they'll do is they will send out a risk information sheet about a destination before a traveler goes there, often initiated by the travel management company. However, this is not a risk assessment. A risk assessment is an interrogation of what the individual is actually doing on the ground, or what the team is doing on the ground. And that's what RiskPal enables organizations to do. And a number of our clients are not happy with the status quo, which is you just receive a information sheet saying X country is dangerous, and we don't actually know what you're doing. So that's why a lot of people are moving to RiskPal or platforms like it. The other thing is also a lot of people are doing travel tracking. This comes with a host of issues, not to mention privacy issues, but also, as we're seeing in Beirut right now, I don't know if any of the audience have people in Lebanon or Israel, but we do, our clients do. And what we're seeing is that all the tracking devices are pointing at the airports because of spoofing, which means that the travel tracking is actually doesn't really serve any purpose at the moment. So what does RiskPal do? RiskPal, in a nutshell, is just a platform that allows you to create, manage, and store risk assessments at scale. The vast majority of our clients are big organizations that will produce tens, if not hundreds, of risk assessments a month, thousands a year. And it basically takes the pain out of doing the risk assessment process and makes safety simple. And by that, what I mean is we approach risk assessment from a user perspective. We want the user to be able to fill out a form as fast as possible, share all the pertinent information, not have to duplicate information, and do so without struggling with formatting issues that they discover in Word and Excel. We want this to be a swift, seamless process for the user. Often platforms focus on taking out as many data outputs as possible, which means that users are literally filling out forms with hundreds of questions or tens of questions, which is a very unpleasant user experience for anyone who's filled out a form. So we really focus on the user experience and try and make it as pleasant as possible. So RiskPal has a number of features in it. I'm going to run through all of them in the demo, but the key important point is that it's very highly customizable, highly configurable, and allows you to build risk assessments across your business, not just for travel, but obviously I'm focusing on travel in this for this demo. So how does RiskPal work? In a nutshell, what happens is we create risks in the back end that come with a lot of guidance, and this feeds a massive library which powers RiskPal in the back end. This library is completely customizable and manageable by the user. It takes minimal training to manage it, and by the user, by the client, and it takes minimal training. And what we like to for happen is that the clients are in charge of their own destiny when it comes to managing their risk library effectively. We can help, but we know a number of all of our clients want to take control of their travel risk library, essentially. That library then feeds a series of risk assessment templates that you create in RiskPal, And those templates are accessible to the workforce who can fill them out quickly. And basically, it streamlines their workload, but it also basically means that they are provided with best practice guidance as they fill out the risk assessment, which is something that's often lacking in Word or Excel. Best of all, or not best of all, but very importantly, it's ISO 27001 certified, which means we take data security incredibly seriously. I think I don't know of other risk assessment platforms that have this certification because it's quite hard to get, but we really take your data privacy very, very seriously. Okay, so what RiskPal does is it's an easier path to risk assessment. It means that you're supported all the way when you fill out a form, you get guidance built in, it's secure, you have the ability to get feedback from different users, there's a clear approval process, and it's engaging and helpful. We have lots of little Easter eggs along the way, which I'll show you, that help people fill out the risk assessments that are useful to them. So fundamentally, risk assessment goes from just being a bureaucratic process to being something that is valuable for the traveler. Okay, great. So I'm going to share my screen, which is the RiskPal platform. And what we've done is we've created a demo environment for this session. And I am a super user. My name is Ricardo in this platform. And I'm going to walk you through the different features in RiskPal. So to start with, if you're a safety manager, I'm going to show you the risk assessment register, because what this provides you with is a lot of oversight of your travel, which bolsters your travel management company and the data you're getting from your travel tracker, if that's what you're using. But let's click on the risk assessment register. And this is a list of all the risk assessments that you have currently going on, or trips going on, if that's how they fill them out. And what you can do is you can search by country or time or department. So let's just look at Israel. So that's a hot story right now. And if you were looking for trips that were going on in Israel, you could see that there is a trip to visit the development team. And if you click on the actual title, what you can see is the dates of the travel. So it's ongoing. You can see the country they're visiting. You can see the project members, the reason for the trip, where they're staying, and what are the key objectives and the key risk factors. All of this is customizable when you build the templates, right? So this is a travel notification form, and you can see all the details that you need to understand this trip. So this is the risk register, and you can keep across all your travel this way if you so desire. But I'm going to show you how you build a risk assessment from scratch. So what you do is, if you're a user, you're going on a trip, your most likely situation is you are going to go to the country page beforehand to find out about that country. And I'm just creating a fictitious trip to Kenya, so I would say. So you click on Kenya, and what you can see in the is travel information about Kenya. So this is the risk rating supplied by Crisis24. They say it's a 4. We can build other APIs from other providers. We are not responsible for this information, I should add. And what you can see is their standard country threat profile. So geopolitical risk, terrorism, civil unrest, for example, all the standard things that you're used to seeing in a travel risk assessment. And you can see the most recent incidents and warnings. There's a terrorism threat currently in place, issued by the US Embassy. But up here, what's different from many platforms is you have a company space that you can create and share information with your travelers specific to your business. So I filled this out this morning. I created some dummy information about a company. So this is obviously a fake demo environment for a company called Travel Risk Demo. And this is the information that the corporate security team could fill out. So for example, any travelers going to Nairobi need to know that they need to phone the security manager, Margaret Kithongo, for example, to inform her of the travel. And she'll provide them with a security briefing. You need to fill out a full risk assessment. And upon arrival, you need to be met by a dedicated driver, because staff have been victims of crime before. The recommended hotel is the Sunranda Hotel in Nairobi. This is a fake hotel, by the way. I just created it for the demo. And Nairobi Taxis, again, a dummy company, is the recommended car company. So this is very specific to this organization, and you can customize this data around your organization. So going back, the individual now knows that they have to fill out a risk assessment. So they will click on Create Risk Assessment, and they can select from a series of templates. So they would normally pick international travel, but just like Blue Peter, I've created one earlier just for the purpose of this demo to speed things up. And they're going for a Nairobi office visit. So they fill out the details of travel, the project name, the dates. They can select from different drop-down menu the department they're responsible for. They only have one choice, which is the project operations teams. You can see the author is my character or my avatar, Jason Ricardo. I've selected Kenya as my destination, and I've assigned other travelers with me. So Joanna Ricardo is coming with me, and Sarah Gonzalez. And I've also assigned a non-RiskPal member. So this is a contractor called James Richard, who's also attending this trip. So I've just literally through the drop-down menu, I put them in. The approving manager, you should select someone who's not you, ideally. So you could select, if I just take out Colin Jackson from here, I can put Colin Jackson here, who's the approving manager. But just for the purpose of the demo, I'm going to select myself, which is not normal practice and can't normally be done. And then you have fields to fill out like in a standard risk assessment. Now, these fields, when you build the template, are completely customizable. The person building the template can ask whatever they want. So it's standard for us for travel risk to ask what the project overview is, and the individual. So this team is there. They're going on an engineering. They're going to meet a local engineering company who's asked them for assistance in expanding their operations across Africa. Again, this is all purely fictitious. The key objectives are to conduct due diligence and negotiate a partnership, and they're going to be doing client meetings, market research, networking, etc., etc. You can read what's on the screen. They're then asked to fill out project details. So they'll be filling out a schedule. Again, when they approach this from a blank screen perspective, there are instructions in the field to tell them what to do, which again is all built in at template level. And they can fill out a schedule and break down what they're doing on a business level. What's important to note is that the author doesn't have to be the person traveling. It could be the executive assistant or an assistant or someone else who just has detail of the trip. So it's often hard to get people to fill out all of this detail, but this is what we like from our travelers. And bear in mind, we're safety risk managers, and we also we have travelers traveling all the time. So there's a summary field as well. Again, this is purely customizable, and you can, if it's going to review to your corporate security team, for example, they could fill this out afterwards. We find this field very helpful because often the approver doesn't really want to go into much detail. They just want the reviewer to go into the detail, and they want to see what the exec summary is effectively about the risks and sign that off. So you could fill it out after review, or you could ask the traveler if they're very experienced to fill it out. It just depends how you want to bake the cake. And here I've just filled out a field, which is, there's certain things that you could ask your travelers, for example. So, are their vaccinations up to date? Security training, next of kin, for example. And they can answer when they fill it out, yes or no, or they can fill out more information about whether that's relevant. So I'm scrolling through this quite fast for this demo, but I think you get the general idea that this page is completely customizable. You can ask the traveler what they want, what you want, and the traveler fills it out as appropriate, or the executive assistant fills it out. And it gives you an idea of what they're doing. And to put this in context, we have clients on the ground in Lebanon and Israel. We know where they are, what they're doing, and they're constantly, and because they've filled out these forms for us, and we're able to assist them if necessary. So I'll just jump to the next page, which is this country risk information page that I showed you earlier. So the traveler, you get 2 bites of the cherry, so to speak. So the traveler, other members of the team who didn't access the country page, for example, can see all the information. sorry, what I should say, let me just go back a second. I jumped ahead. So many of our clients customize the form based on what their needs are. So as I showed you in that travel notification form earlier for Israel, in that form, you only had the essential information page, for example. You didn't have the country profile, risk mitigation, supplier communications, and other details. These tabs, when you build a template, are completely customizable. You can add them or subtract them from the form as necessary. And that allows you greater flexibility when you're building your templates. So, sorry, I should have explained that at the top. But just going into country profile, as described, you get 2 bites of the cherry. And I've shown this to you already. So let's go into the risk mitigation. So the risk mitigation section is really where you drill down and interrogate what your traveler is doing. And this is where the risk library that I referred to earlier comes into play. So in the risk mitigation section, what you do is you have a series of questions. I'll just show you this travel accommodation section. You have a series of questions which the user can tick depending on if they're relevant. So transport on arrival, you have this best practice guidance that is built into RiskPal, but you are able to customize effectively. And this you can provide the traveler with specific mitigation or measures that you want them to do. So the expert guidance says, if possible, arrange for a trusted contact to meet you. And the user or the traveler has to fill out the controls and mitigation. And in this case, they've said they're going to have a hotel vehicle pick them up. They've typed this all in, and they're aware that robberies have taken place in the airport. That was something that was referred to in the country page earlier. If you want, you can assign a risk matrix, and the user can change can assign a risk value to this this section, and they can select from a drop-down menu who's affected. When you build a template, you could leave this out if it's not appropriate for the risk template that you're building, the risk assessment template. And you can attach files to this. So what happens is basically the user, as they go through, they work through the questions, they assign the risks that are relevant based on the country page, the country briefing they've received. They read the best practice guidance, which nudges them to better behavior on the ground, and they then outline what their behavior should be. So here's protests. They're saying that they're going to avoid all the protests, and the business manager has actually supplied them with a very helpful protest map of Nairobi. I hope you can see this on screen. I'm just clicking on it. Oh, sorry, it's appearing on a different screen. So this would be where the main protests are, and these would be the areas that they're avoiding. So I'll just take that down. So just going back to the top, they work their way through the risk assessment and attach appropriate questions to the risks, and they read the best practice guidance. Okay, I haven't filled out every field for you. And if they are attaching the risk matrix, you can see that this is where the risks are populated. I put protests at the top. But say for some reason, the medical issue is the highest risk. So there's been an outbreak of monkeypox, for example, which was obviously across Africa. You can move that to the top. So that risk displays right at the top. And if you look at the risk matrix, then monkeypox has become the #1 risk in Kenya. That's not the case. So I don't want to give Kenya a bad name, so I'm just going to move it down to the bottom again. So they filled out all the sections that are relevant to them. To make this easier, you can only show the assigned risk assessments, risk questions. And they've filled out bank fraud, device interrogation. You get the general idea. There's best practice guidance, and they fill out the mitigation that they're following. And if there is something missing from these questions, so say there's something that they want to add, they can go into the RiskPal library at the back that you have customized, hopefully, and they can find specific questions that are relevant to them, for example. So say there's going to be a storm, they can add, I'm just pulling these out at random, they could add driving in bad weather, for example, from the RiskPal library. And that would then appear in the risk assessment because it's rainy season in Kenya, for example. So let's just move to the next page. So again, this is the supplier, and I had told you that we put various Easter eggs in the risk assessment. So what a lot of our travelers tell us is that, you know, before they're traveling, it's hard for them to get to the vetted supplier list of the company in question. So we've built it into the risk assessment. So going to Kenya, they would go into the supplier list, they would select the country, Kenya, and you could see they would be able to choose from various suppliers on the ground. This self-catering apartments, Hatari hotel and rooms, what you can see is that they've got a lock beside it, right? And they can't assign it. If they try, it says you've selected a prohibited supplier. And what this allows the business to do is say you can't use certain suppliers for safety reasons. And what you can see here is they've included a description of why you can't use Hatari Hotel, because there's no reception and access to the building is non-controlled, so there have been frequent room break-ins. So they are telling their travelers not to use this location. And Hotel Surrender, for example, that you can assign, and it's a very good hotel used by all staff. So they put it on their form, and they're using Nairobi taxis, which is consistent with what the country page said. If they wanted to put Shufti cars, you could look at it, you could just see, and you said they've sent drivers in the past that have got lost around Nairobi and are frequently late. But you still could assign them, because just because they've had some bad drivers doesn't mean you don't want to use them in case Nairobi taxis doesn't have anyone. But if you wanted to prohibit them, you could on the back end. And at this point, I should just mention the feedback loop built into RiskPal. So after a trip is concluded, what happens is all the participants in that trip are sent an email. And in that email, you can design the message that you want to send out. But what we are sort of pre-assigned message is, how was your trip? How did it all go? Is there anything that you would like to share with us that benefit the safety of your colleagues in the future? It's a very key message. It's not asking, saying, can you know tell the security team what happened or the safety team. It's about safety of colleagues. And the users can literally type back a message, an email saying, yes, you know, Shufti cars, they sent us bad drivers, and that message then can be checked and uploaded into the system in the supplier database, for example. Or there might be some other sort of feedback that you capture, which is very important. You know, capturing feedback from travelers is a key thing that's missing in many travel risk programs, and it does help you learn lessons from what goes on the ground and not experience bad experiences again. So we have that automatically built into the system, and it's very useful in the supplier section, but it could pertain to anything. So just conscious of time, I'm going to jump to the next page, which is the communication page. And what you can see is all the travelers, they have profiles in RiskPal, and their numbers are automatically filled out, because when they assign a profile, they're asked for a telephone number, and this avoids duplication of resource or duplication of data input, I should say. And if they filled out their IMEIs, which forgive me, I haven't done this demo, you would see that as well. An IMEI helps you in case it's a unique identifier for a handset, and police forces can use it to track devices if necessary. I should just explain. You can assign emergency contact information. So Margaret Gitongo, for example, the office manager, you could put her number in, and you could add other individuals. So you could add Colin Jackson, who's the manager, for example, if you wanted to. So I'm just typing this in now. So I'm going to put this is not a real number, I should add, by the way, or it is someone's number, but it's not my number. And you could put an email address. You can add local hospital information. depending on the template. So if this was a Kenya specific template, when you build a template, you can add this information in. Just like you could, at the bottom here, you can see you can add medical information, medical evacuation company, policy numbers and helpline, for example. So you can provide this data to the traveler in advance so they don't have to go looking around on the internet for it to make it easier for them. And if they were taking equipment, they could add this, they could click on medical PPE, for example, or body armor or whatever it is. But this is all customizable, this page. So if you didn't want these features to appear, so if you didn't want equipment, you can just take it out when you build the template. I've just left it in for the demonstration purposes. Other details, they could assign a risk rating, or you can do it later, and they can assign any other information. So they could say, we are experienced Kenya travelers, for example. And then they submit the risk assessment for approval. So it's going to go to all of these individuals. As a matter of course, they're all pre-ticked, but I'm just going to untick them so I spare their inboxes so that they don't get it. And they add a comment saying, please sign off ASAP. We need to get moving, for example, and you press submit, and off it goes for approval. You can see it's pending approval. Now, what will happen is the manager will get an email saying you have a risk assessment pending approval. You remember that I selected myself as the manager, which you can't normally do. So I have that email saying you need to approve this, and I'll click on the link and it will take me to this pending folder, which is the Nairobi office visit. And if I click on edit approve, I can work my way through this risk assessment if I am the reviewer or the manager, and see all the information. If I was the corporate security team, this is the moment I fill out this field, for example. So I am not happy that Joanna Ricardo doesn't have security training, for example. So I can send this back to the travelers, and I can say, Joanna does not have the right level of training. Should we be sending that? For example, and I can send this back to the author, and he can then confirm or deny, or I could say you can't take her with you, or whatever the policy states. And I can go through the entire risk assessment, looking at each section, and if necessary, I can make comments, and I can change the color. So let's just put this in orange, for example. You are to avoid all protests at all costs. So, sorry, that's not very clear, actually. Okay. Let me make the text a different color, shall I? And so you can add comments in there and send it back to them for further discussion if you want. Or if you're not the approving manager and you're a reviewer, you forward it and you can select an approving manager. So I would now select Colin Jackson and send it to him for approval, for final approval, so to speak. But just for the sake of argument for this demo, and because time is tight, I'm going to click approve, and I can send it to all the project members saying I'm happy. I can share it with anyone else in the organization, and I'm just going to say I am happy for this trip to proceed. And I will approve it. And going back to the dashboard, you can now see it is in the approved risk assessment register. So you have a record of this trip. If the team on the ground wants to give an update, so they say the Sandara hotel was fully booked. Upon arrival, we are moving to the Four Seasons. For example, they can send notification to Colin Jackson, the boss. They can save the update. And what you will then see is that the update starts pinging here. Colin Jackson's getting an email saying they're moving hotel. So you can do dynamic risk assessment on the ground. And that is all captured in a log here. So obviously these would be different names. For the demo, these are all the same person. But this would be traveler, reviewer, approver, traveler again, for example. And you can see at every stage what changes are made to the risk assessment or what comments are added. I can also just quickly, I'm conscious of time and I've gone over, we've got a very big help suite to help all of our users. We have over nearly 5,000 users in the system who use this every day, not just the help suite, but the platform as a whole. And you can, if you're a super manager or a super admin, I should say, you can see all the users in the system. And I'll just refer to this emergency record. So one of the features we have, which is completely GDPR compliant, in every avatar, when you create a profile, you have emergency details, medical information, and training information. So I click on emergency emergency details. I haven't filled this out yet, but I'm required to give consent for emergency details. And here I can record my date of birth, job title, languages spoken, nationality, passport number, etc., etc. Next of kin, for example, and a duress statement if required. And basically, once I press save and continue, this is then stored. I could record medical information. But if there is a problem, what happens is this information is locked and encrypted and stored in compliance with GDPR. If there is a problem on the ground, what can happen is the senior managers or admin of the system can say there's been an accident, Sarah Gonzalez has been injured. They can see that she's given consent to view the emergency records, right? The others have not given consent, so they don't have this little green box. And in fact, they've got a red box saying they have not given consent, which again, GDPR compliant. So they click on the view consent and they can send this to another manager for secondary approval to say, I need to access Sarah's details ASAP because there's been an accident. They submit this, it goes to Colin Jackson and he can approve it from his phone. And I, as the admin, can access this data for, I think it's 48 hours before it's locked and encrypted again, which means I can make the emergency phone calls I needed. As a security manager myself, I can't tell you how many times I've had incidents that have woken me up in the middle of the night. I've had to go get the next of kin details or the emergency details. And what's that meant is that I've had to go into the office to get it because it can't appear in the risk assessments any longer. In the middle of the night, I have either had to wake up or I've had to dispatch someone to the office to find the secure vault where we store this, because we don't store it online any longer to be compliant with GDPR in many cases. So I'll just go back to the dashboard. I don't know if there are any questions. I can't see them in the chat. I haven't had anyone. I haven't had Daniela stop me,
No
but
questions.
I don't know. Okay, I don't know if anyone wants to ask anything now. Great. So I've bludgeoned you all into submission through this session. I hope it was useful. I won't go into other aspects just because of the time constraints, and I want to be sensitive to your day and give you back a few minutes. Yeah, if you have any further questions, you reach out to us at info@riskpal.co.uk. But thank you so much for joining us for this demo. I hope it was useful. I know it's quite a difficult thing to follow through online, but if you do want to speak to us, we are very happy to show it to you. As I say, we have thousands of users using this every day across the media, NGO, and universities to basically manage their travel risk. So it does work, and a lot of organizations are sort of embracing this more belts and braces approach. So thank you very much. I'd like to thank you for your time once more and say goodbye.